Anupriya already left. Okay, so with your consent, we are recording this meeting. I hope that is okay with everyone. We'll just wait for Anupriya to join us. She's back. Cool. Okay, so now let's begin once again. Tragedy, okay, is the imitation of an action. Okay, that is, that action is life itself. So it is very close to life. Okay, and what kind of an action is it? It is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. So as I told you, this action has to be serious. It cannot be of, someone slipping on a banana peel and dying. No, it has to be complete. So a tragedy has to be initiated, and it has to be effectively completed. You cannot have an open-ended tragedy. Okay, that is not possible. And of a certain magnitude. So see, it cannot be about a poor person. It cannot be about, a man losing his job. No, it has to have that kind of seriousness. It has to have that kind of depth. Okay, because as you know, tragedy has depth. And how? In language embellished or decorated with each kind of artistic ornament. Now here it is meant simile, metaphor, okay, all of those embellishments or decorations should be used in language. So it has to have that kind of height of passion that is conveyed through language. Okay, so it cannot be in very pedestrian kind of language, not allowed. Then the several kinds being found in separate parts of the play. So see, you have similes, you have metaphors. Now don't use everything in the same sentence. Okay, it has to be sprinkled all over the play. And in what form is this tragedy conveyed? It is conveyed in the form of action, not of narrative. So that action has to be there, visible on screen, on the stage for the people to see and experience. Okay. And then what happens? Through pity and fear, effecting the proper purgation of these emotions. So see, through pity and fear, when you see, the tragedy unfolding on the stage, when you see that, everything is falling apart for this human being because probably of a sudden turn, because of a sudden, turn of events, or because of, let's say, a sudden reversal of his fortune. Okay, because of any of these things, his life is falling apart. And what does that induce in the audience? Pity and fear. Okay, which leads to a state of mind called catharsis. Okay, catharsis. And that is, that whole purgation or purification of emotion. Okay, which is called catharsis. All right. So once again, let me tell you, tragedy is then an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, which means that tragedy cannot be about commoners. It has to be about kings and princes and, noblemen and so on. Okay, and the language has to be suitably full of gravity in order to suit the situation. And it has to be embellished with various kinds of artistic ornaments, which should be found in different parts of the play. And the action has to be, the narrative has to, or rather the tragedy has to be in the form of action and not narrative. Somebody cannot come running into the stage and say, oh, there was a terrible battle, 150 people were killed, and, your brother, your sister, your mother, your child, everybody is dead in the battle, and now I don't know what you're going to do. And then they were buried in a shallow grave and the wolves dug the grave out. No, that is not how it is. Okay, that action has to be there. Oedipus has to poke his eyes out and blind himself in front of the audience. Okay, that kind of a thing. So that there can be pity and fear that is evoked. Now, pity, because, you will be like, oh my God, this man was a king once upon a time. He was happy. His kingdom had prosperity. And now look at him. Okay, that pity. And fear not just for the character, it is also a fear that is roused within you looking at the fate of this person. Okay, effecting the proper purgation or catharsis. Okay, that sense of, ousting all of these emotions and the sense of relief that you feel, that in a way it is not you. Okay, that is what is tragedy and the end result of tragedy. So this definition, it would be better if you can write it down and learn it. It would be very, very good. Okay. So, yeah. Now we will go on to Riders to the Sea. Okay. Now see, Riders to the Sea was written by John Millington Synge. Okay, and it was written in the year 1904, and it is a one act play, and in fact it was the first play that was staged by the Abbey Theatre after it was formed. The Abbey Theatre was formed in 1904, and this was the first play that they had staged, and this was a very powerful play, and in a sense of the term it was one of the foundational let's say stones of the Celtic twilight or the Irish literary revival or the Irish Renaissance. Okay, so we could say that because the Irish literary revival was a movement that sought to incur or to garner pride in the Irish heritage, in Irish folklore, in Irish songs, in Irish culture, so as to bolster or in order to encourage the growth of a nationalist movement, because the Irish were fighting for independence from the British, okay, from all of Great Britain. They wanted to be separate, and in order to feel that they were worth it, that they had a heritage and a culture to fall back upon, the Irish literary revival or the Celtic twilight literary renaissance went a long that sense of the term. Riders to the Sea was a landmark play because it brought to the forefront the hard, harsh lives of the Irish. Okay, and it also talked about the classic battle between humans and nature, where nature seems to be indifferent to the plight of human beings. Okay, and it is very interesting from the point of view of faith, okay, which is also a theme in the play. You should remind me to talk about that. Faith, because see, how is the Indian concept of faith? Generally, we say we are nice people, we do good things, so only good things should come to us. Okay, we believe in something called karma. But here is a set of people who don't seem to look at life that way. They see life and they see death, and they believe that death is as inevitable as as anything else. In fact, if you're born, you are meant to die, and the manner of your death is what matters the most. Okay, how you die, and you are dead. Now that's all that matters. So that kind of a pragmatism. Okay, and also this play kind of reflects that essential mysticism that began to be associated with Irish literature. Because see, the Anglo-Saxons kind of claimed all of the cerebral literature for themselves. Okay, so the Irish thought, or the literature of matter, materialistic literature. So the Irish felt that at least the mystic literature should belong to them. So there were all these mystical verses being written, the essential beauty of the unknown. Okay, the occult was examined. All of this, there was a great deal of interest in what we would call the mystic sphere. So that way, this particular play is also quite important because it kind of examines all these tendencies of the Irish. Okay, it talks about the dead man walking behind the living. Okay, it talks about unknown women crying. It is heavy in its symbolism. Okay, there is great amount of symbolism that is present in Riders to the Sea, and you just have to look beneath the surface. But even if you are not going to examine it from the mystic perspective, it so happens that the play is powerful in the way that it deals with death. Okay, without any sentiments. Okay, and almost there is a sense of grim satisfaction in the way the mother talks about her dead children. Okay, now how many of you are familiar with the play? Okay, how many of you are not familiar with the play? Tell me that. That will be easier. All of you are extremely familiar. Okay, so does this mean I don't have to go through the play? Do you want me to go through the play?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's that? Oh, okay, fine. Okay, so see, it's a one act play. See, that is the beauty of it. It's a one act play, which means that the action is continuous and it happens in sequence, and all of the action unfolds within the same setting. There is no change of scene or setting or anything of that sort. The scene just flows in and out. Okay, I hope you know that that is one of the characteristics of the one act play. What distinguishes a one act play from a many act play is the fact that the entire action unfolds on the same stage without any change of scene. Okay. Now, the play has a very limited number of characters. You have Moria, the mother, who's an old woman. You have Bartley, her son. You have Kathleen, Moria's daughter. You have Nora, who's again Moria's daughter. And then, you have some men and women who are generally off stage. There's just a couple of them who come in at the end. Now, the scene is set in an island of the west of Ireland. Okay, now see this, I hope you know, comes from Synge's own experience of staying at a place called the Aran Islands. Aran, okay, Aran Islands. And in fact, he had written a book also about the island. It was called the Aran Islands. And here, when he had stayed, he had closely observed the lives of the people, their thought processes, and, how they deal with some of the fundamental aspects of human life, birth, marriage, death, and how their belief systems work. So many of the things that you have seen in this play are taken from his experience of having lived in the Aran Islands. Okay, like some of these stories that are there in the play. Okay, the death of Bartley, the death of Michael, the other son. Okay, that was a story that he had heard. Okay, and he incorporates that into this particular play. And there are aspects of Irish life, their food, their dialect, all of this when he incorporated, it showed the Irish, the beauty of their language. Okay, the rustic power of their language was revealed. Okay, this was not by any means the first play to do that, but I think its compact structure enabled people to better appreciate it. So see, when the stage opens, you see that it's a peasant's house. And there are all of these requirements, the daily implements that are used by fishermen. So you have on the wall, you have nets. Okay, you have oil skins, that is some form of raincoat. You have a spinning wheel, some new boards, planks of wood that are placed near the wall. So all of these things this is the setting. This is the only setting. There is an oven that is there, and there is something, one of the characters is kneading bread. When they say cake, they mean bread. Okay, so she's kneading her bread and she has put it in the oven, and then she sits down to spin on the wheel. Okay, now do you know the significance of the spinning wheel? Apart from Gandhi? Okay. Are you all actually there?
Yes, ma'am, we are here.
Ma'am, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, all right.
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
because I asked whether you know the wheel thing and nobody said anything. That is why. Okay. We will come to that when we talk about symbolism. Now, in case I leave it out, I would like you people to remind me. So please make notes about what to remind me. One was about faith and the other was about this, right? Okay. So Kathleen, okay, and Kathleen and Nora, they are the ones who open the scene. Okay, now Nora comes in and asks her sister where the mother is, and Kathleen says that she's lying down, and what is the matter? And she says that the young priest, has given her a set of clothes. Okay, that she has to identify. For it could be the clothes of her brother Michael, who had been drowned 9 days ago. Okay, so the sister says, hide it. Kathleen says, hide it for the time being, because I can hear mother stirring there, and if she finds out anything about all of this, she's going to cry. Okay, so they put it aside, and by then, the mother comes in, and she is talking to these women, and there is this constant sense of remembrance or reminiscing that the mother does about her dead sons. Okay, and she does so with a sense of fierce remembrance. There is something very grim, fierce, at the same time satisfying about the way that she recounts all the dead people in her life. Okay. So she looks out and finds that the mother, okay, Moria, looks out and finds that the sea is very, very inhospitable. It is rough, okay, and the entire climate seems to be rather unfavorable. And then she asks, is Bartley going to go out to the market? Now, see, they are an island, which means that the sea is the only form of their connection with the outside world. And the sea is also their only source of livelihood. So the sea is their livelihood, the sea is their bridge, the sea is also her greatest enemy. Okay, so it's these multiple levels or layers on which the sea operates, and that makes it a very, very important metaphor. Okay, a symbol. So anyway, so she says, is he going to go out? And then she says, he can't be going out at this time. And then she says, the young priest will stop him. Now look at this reference to the young priest. Okay, they go on saying young priest, young priest. Now Ireland was a predominantly Catholic country, that is true, but and there were a number of priests in say given area, but maybe using the term young priest would distinguish him from an older or senior priest, but it could also mean Jesus, okay, who was quite young. Okay, the young prophet, yeah. So she says the young priest will stop him, and the girls say no, he will not stop him, because the priest said that he will not be stopping Bartley from going out to the sea. Okay, and she says the two other people also told her that he will be going to the sea. Okay. Now, meanwhile, the package that was there in Nora's hand, she puts it up in the loft. Okay. And there they don't have much of firewood. Instead, what they have is turf. Okay. That is grass. They just, kind of conserve it, and they keep it up in the loft. Okay. So she keeps it there. And yeah. So anyway, so Moria is rather disturbed that the boy is insisting on going. By which time the boy comes around and he says, yes, I am going. Do you have any rope? And the sister hands him the rope, and Moria says, why are you going out at this point of time? Look at the sea. And he says, well, we have to do what we have to do. And the women, the other women say, how can we keep a young man in the house when his job is to go out and earn, when his job is to go out and jostle with the sea? How can we keep him at home? And Moria is still not convinced. She wants the boy to stay home, but he does not. Okay, she says, we can sell the pig. Or why do you have to go? We will need this rope to tie the pig when we sell it. And they say, is that pig in any condition to be sold? So that is not happening. And Bartley, it's almost like inevitable. Bartley stubbornly decides to go. And what happens is that the sisters discover that he hasn't taken bread with him. Okay, so they pull the bread out of the oven, and just before they do that, Moria is very distractedly stirring the oven, and they're like, you're moving the turf away from the bread. Okay, because the bread is cooking, the turf is there and the fire is coming from it. When she moves it, the bread remains here, the turf moves away. So that you're moving it away, just don't do that, keep it right under the bread. So then when Bartley leaves is when the sisters realize that he hasn't taken his bread. Okay, bread being the symbol of life. Okay, so bread being the symbol of life. Now, at this point of time, what happens is Moria takes the bread and goes out to give it to her son, who is going to the Connemara market to sell horses. Okay, he says it's a good time to sell horses. The Connemara market was in mainland Ireland. Okay, that is across the island. Now, Connemara market, I hope you know, is the name of the market also.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Yes, ma'am.
anyway, that's our connection with the Irish. Anyway, so like I was telling you, she goes out, and in the meanwhile the sisters bring down the cloth, the bundle that was there, and they cut it open. It just contains a few items of clothing of that drowned man who was drowned, and he was found floating way far away. Okay, and these women are very upset that a man who died was found floating way away from wherever he was. Okay, and the sister counts the stitches. I mean, she looks at the clothes and finds that it is her brother Michael's clothes. And the other one asks her, "How do you know?" Hmm? And she says, "I was the one who stitched this, and I had dropped 4 stitches. There was an irregularity like that, so I know that this is Michael's." Okay, and when she says that, by then the mother comes back in crying. Okay, she's keening. Keening is the sound that women make when they are mourning. She's keening, and they ask her what happened, what happened, and she says, Bartley is going to. I saw the most terrible thing ever, and they say, what is it? So I saw Michael sitting on the grey pony. Okay, so till then the sisters who believed that their mother was just hallucinating about Michael finally are convinced that what she's saying is true, because now they have proof in their hands that Michael is dead. Okay, and she goes on keening, and then she starts recounting all the men in her family who died. She says this was a full house. There was my husband, there was my husband's father, there were 6 of my sons, and now they are all gone. Every one of them is gone. The sea has taken them all. And that exactly is what happens. There are 9 unknown I'm sorry, there are 9 unknown women who come. Okay, and behind them Bartley is brought in, and now to be Bartley just as the thing. Okay, now before that there was one more thing. When the mother goes to give the bread, Bartley passes her by, and she is so struck by the sight of seeing Michael on the horse that she forgets to give him the bread, which means that she forgets to hand him life. Okay, she forgets to also give him a blessing, like God be with you or anything. Okay, so but the son in turn gives her a greeting as he walks by. So she's very worried. She was very worried about that. And then there is also the fact that Bartley was going to board a ship that was waiting for him. Okay, and it is supposed to be a ship with a green face and so on. But if you think about it, it could be the ship of death. It could be a figurative ship, okay, which has come to take him. Now, as I told you, Bartley is brought in by the people, and the sisters ask what happened, and they say that the grey pony pushed him into the sea and he was washed out. Okay, so in a way it could be that Michael came to claim his brother. Hmm? Yes, the rope does symbolize death, or it could also be those ties that kind of bind you to this earthly presence. Okay, that's what Afra is asking. So yes, definitely. Yeah, so okay, so this is in effect the story. Okay, and then we come to the very significant part at the end. See, look at that line that she says, I've had a husband's father, and 6 sons in this house, 6 fine men. Though it was hard work I had with every one of them, and they coming into the world, some of them were found, some of them were not found. But now they are gone, the lot of them. There were Stephen and Sean, were lost in the great wind. They were blown out by the wind into the sea, and found after in the bay of Gregory of the Golden Mouth, and carried up the 2 of them on one plank and in by that door. So they were both put on those planks and brought in. Okay, and those, remember those wooden planks I told you about? Those wooden planks were meant to build a coffin for Michael. But now Michael has been washed away, so they will be used for Bartley. Yes. So then again she continues, there was Seamus and his father, and his own father again were lost in a dark night, and not a stick or sign of them when the sun went up. So see, that's why she says some were found, some were not found. Stephen and Sean were found, but Seamus, then her own husband and her husband's father, they were not found. Then there was Patch after he was drowned out of a curragh that turned over. Okay, I was sitting here with Bartley and he a baby on my two knees. So Bartley was just a baby when Patch died, and she says she saw two women and three women and four women coming in. Okay, so altogether 8 women came in, and they crossed themselves and not saying a word. I looked out at them, and men were coming after them, and they holding a thing in the half of a red sail and water dripping out of it. Okay, so that is it. See, she calls her son Patch. When he earlier he was her son, then now she says there was something that was wrapped in a half a sail. That was her son. Okay. And now old women begin to come in, okay, and they're all kneeling down because they're praying for Bartley's soul. And then Moria tells us, Kathleen, is it Patch or Michael or what is it at all? Again, she calls her dead son it, in this case, Bartley. So Kathleen says Michael is after being found in the north. Okay, so she says Michael has been found in the north. They found his dead body. So how can it be Michael here? Okay. So Kathleen still believes that the dead body that they're bringing is that of Michael. But Nora knows that's not true. Okay, Nora says they are carrying a thing among them and there's water dripping out of it and leaving a track by the big stones. See, in the case of Patch also, she said they were bringing a thing and that it was leaving a track of water on a very dry day. The same thing is happening. So see, it's that repetitiveness. It is like, that inevitability, the circularity of fate that Moria is commenting upon. Okay. So Kathleen says, is it Bartley? And one of the women say, it surely is. Okay. And Kathleen asks, how was he drowned? And one of the women say, the grey pony knocked him over into the sea and he was washed out where there is a great surf on the white rocks. Okay. And that is when Moria says these lines. Okay. They are all gone now. And there isn't any more the sea can do to me. So see, the sea, which is their bridge, which is their livelihood, is also their greatest enemy. Okay, I'll have no call now to be up crying and praying when the wind breaks from the south and you can hear the surface in the east and the surface in the west, making a great stir with the two noises and they hitting one on the other. I'll have no call now to be going down and getting holy water in the dark nights after Samhain. I won't care what way the sea is when the other women will be keening. Okay, so see, when the mother says that I am not going to worry anymore because I have no need to worry. All my sons are dead. Okay, so now I don't have to sit up and pray. I don't have to cry like other women because they'll also be worried about their sons. I no longer have to be worried about my men. So she asks for the holy water. It is brought to her and she drops, Moria takes Michael's clothes, okay, and she drops them on Bartley's feet and sprinkles the holy water over him. It isn't that I haven't prayed for you, Bartley, to the Almighty God. It isn't that I haven't said prayers in the dark night till you wouldn't know what I'd be saying, but it's a great rest I'll have now, and it's time, surely. It's a great rest I'll have now, and great sleeping in the long nights after Samhain. If it's only a bit of wet flour, we do have to eat, and maybe a fish that would be stinking. Okay, so where you think that the mother would be keening or beating her chest or talking about her own tragedy and how life has been unfair, here is this woman talking very calmly about the fact that she no longer has to cry about anything or worry about anybody anymore. Okay, and you may say that she's in shock, she's in grief, but this is not the kind of land, this is not the kind of people who will dwell on their past sorrows, because this is a hard land, it's a harsh land, and the only goal is survival. Okay, so she says that now I have no men left to go and earn for us. Maybe we'll only be eating a bit of wet flour, or we will just be eating some very stinky fish, but that is okay. I will be able to rest. The days of worry are behind me. Okay. And then, the sisters ask the two men standing there to make a coffin in the morning. And they say that there are some very fine white planks that the mother had bought for Michael. You can use it for Bartley. And they say, sure. Do you have any nails? And they're like, oh, I think she forgot the nails. And the man asks, how did she not think of the nails looking at all the coffins that she has already got made? Hmm? So Kathleen says she is old and broken. Okay. But ah, but I don't think it is because of that. Maybe she felt that if she buys those nails, if she gets those nails, then death becomes inevitable. Okay, if she doesn't get those nails, then maybe they're just planks. They are not meant for a coffin. It could be that way. Okay. So anyway, now this is the last part. Okay. Moria puts the empty cup mouth downwards on the table. That putting the empty cup downwards on the table is a sign of finality. Okay, it is a sign of complete closure. It signifies end. Okay, so she says they're all together this time, and the end is come. May the Almighty God have mercy on Bartley's soul and on Michael's soul and on the souls of Seamus and Patch and Stephen and Sean. And may He have mercy on my soul, Nora, and on the soul of everyone left living in the world. A woman who's had, 8 members of her family lost to the sea, okay, still asks for mercy from the Almighty. Okay, now, Moria continues. Michael has a clean burial in the far north by the grace of the Almighty God. Bartley will have a fine coffin out of the white bones and a deep grave shortly. What more can we want than that? No man can be living forever, and we must be satisfied. Okay, and she kneels down, and the curtain closes. Okay, so look at the way that this play so very pragmatically deals with the idea of death. Okay, and look at the sheer power that the characters are emanating, that they are putting forward. Okay, so we'll start with, wait, before that, do you have any doubts about the play? Anything that you need clarified?
No, ma'am. All clear.
Anyone else? You want to write it in the chat box? Please do. I'll wait
No,
for
ma'am, it's clear.
yeah. Okay. And anyway, 5 seconds I'll give you if you want to say anything, or I have a doubt or anything like that. Just write it out in the chat box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, Rema. Yeah, go ahead. You can speak it out.
Ma'am, it was about a word, but then I'm not finding it anymore. I think it's about Ma'am, can I just find this out?
Yeah, sure. Was it a word in the text?
It is a word in the text.
Where does it approximately occur? What is the general mean? Oh, okay. What was the context?
The boat coming from, I don't know, the boat at which Bartley has to leave.
The green face thing.
Yeah, there is this term that I don't understand, but I'm not finding it.
Wait. New rope, halter, boat going out, washed up, 9 days, cook for the kelp.
No, ma'am, wait. The hooker stacking. The hooker stacking.
Yeah. Can you just take me there? I remember reading that.
I remember reading that too, but then I haven't found it.
I think he's talking about the ship, right?
Yeah, it is about the ship.
Hooker stuck somewhere. That hooker is not the general meaning that one associates with the term. It is Blessing of God upon you, saying it over. You will have me come soon. Is she coming to the pier? Jobber.
Maybe I'll find it out and ask you later.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And, yes, I got it. I got it. Nora says it, not this one. He went down to see would there be another boat sailing in the week, and I'm thinking it won't be long till he's here now, for the tide's turning at the green head and the hookers tacking from the east. These are all those maritime terms. It could be the wind that is coming in. That's why there are these certain kinds of winds that are referred to in this way, because they manage to catch the sail manages to catch them, and it helps to it helps to propel the ship. That is why. That's all that is.
Okay. There's a lot of
Maritime imagery.
Yeah.
So that's why. So the tide is turning, and also the hooker, that is the kind of wind that comes, and it snares the what do you call sail, and that helps to move the ship forward. That is why. So unless there's a favorable wind, you can't have the ship move. It will just stay there. That is the whole thing. That's why in the ocean there are these places that are called the doldrums, Doldrums, which is where there is no ocean current and there is no wind either. Okay, so if your ship is running on sails, it will just stay there till another wind starts up from somewhere, if you're lucky. That is why if you're very upset, or nothing is moving forward, you're trying to do something and it is not going forward, you are stuck in the doldrums. I know how many of you have read this poem called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. In that, you remember that portion where the ship is just lying there in the middle of the ocean after he shoots the albatross.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That situation is the doldrums.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? Where the ship doesn't move forward, it's just there. There is no breeze, nothing for the sails to catch and move forward. That is it. So anyway, so let's talk about the play. Okay, so first of all, the play is a play written in 1904. It is a one-act play, which means that the entire action unfolds at one stretch on the stage. There is no change of scene. There is no relocation of the action either. Okay, and most of the action takes place on the stage itself. There is hardly much that takes place off stage, and even when it does, it is narrated or recounted on stage. And another thing about that, sure, we will come to that. Asha is asking about the gender bias, which I also felt. But see, again, we have to be culturally sensitive to the entire thing. Anyway, so let's come back to this. So, much of the action which is taking place off stage is also recounted in great detail here. And it is not so much also about the situation as the way that these characters handle the situation. So from the play, from its setting, from its characters, we can understand the background that this play comes from. As I told you, it is taken from Synge's experiences at the Aran Islands, about which he has also written a book called The Aran Islands. And it talks about the harsh, hard, unforgiving lives of the people who inhabited that island. Okay, and here also what you see is that there is a sense of toughness, a sense of harshness that occupies these people's lives. Okay, and just as life, living is seen as inevitable, dying is also seen as equally inevitable. Okay, and this makes this play very, very significant, because it also puts forward a certain philosophy that tries to live life on the terms that are handed to it, rather than struggle against a fate that you can do nothing about. Okay, and it also detaches fate from faith. Okay, it detaches it. It does not put in that law of causality, Causality. Okay. Okay, causality, in the sense that if you do something bad could happen to you. Nothing like that. Okay, so that is why fate, F-A-T-E, is kept separate from faith, F-A-I-T-H. Okay, which is something that is very, very alien to, let's say, an Eastern or an Indian way of thought. Okay, where we believe that our fate is influenced by not only our faith but also our deeds. Okay, and here the most towering figure that you see is that of Maurya's. Okay, now she is not a woman in the ordinary stereotypical sense of the thing. Okay, because normally what you see is that a mother is supposed to be the image of mercy, kindness, suffering, sacrifice, and so on. Okay, but here is a mother who does everything that she is supposed to do as a mother. Okay, she looks after her children, she cares for them, she watches over them. As she says, she prays and prayed and prayed for her children till her prayers became incoherent, till her prayers became almost incoherent. She has been praying over nights for that long. She has kept watch for her children to come home. She has done all of that. Okay, and despite that she lost her children. So you see that Maurya is a rather stoic figure. Okay, she's a rather stoic or pragmatic figure. Okay, and one who is not given to a lot of sentimentality, because the landscape does not allow for that sort of sentimentality. See, in this particular play, as is there in a number of other literary works, okay, the landscape is symbolic of the mindscape. Okay, the landscape is symbolic of the mindscape. All right, there is yet another outstanding work like that. It is called Zorba the Greek. Okay, Zorba the Greek by Nikos Kazantzakis. Okay, by Nikos Kazantzakis. Again, okay. So, and in a way, the people who are there in both of these work, in this as well as in Zorba, are not very different either. You will see when, if at all you get to study this book. It's there in World Classics, actually, in your later semesters. Anyway, so as I told you, Maurya is a very, very, stoic, pragmatic, and strong figure. And, she is not the stereotypical mother that we have come to expect. That element of sentimentality is missing from her. But what you have to see is, she has a fierce memory. Okay? Okay, a fierce memory which is which not only remembers her children but also remembers the circumstances in which she lost all the members of her family. Okay, and even at this moment she is looking upon the sea as a source of sustenance, okay, but also as an adversary. Okay, she's looking at the sea as a source of sustenance but also as an adversary or an enemy. Understand? So that is very interesting, and this makes Maurya the single or sole protagonist of the play. Okay, protagonist of the play. Now, though the play is titled Riders to the Sea, it is about that enduring personality of Maurya that this play finally becomes. Okay, and she becomes not just a universal mother, but she also becomes the human spirit. Okay, and for the Irish, she symbolized their spirit. Okay, she symbolizes the strength of the human spirit, and for the Irish, Maurya symbolized their own spirit. Okay, because in the figure of Moria, they saw the reflections of the struggles that they have been, experiencing or undergoing for centuries. Okay, the oppression, the losses, the sadness, the tragedy, the loss of dignity, all of that. Okay, so in the figure of Moria, the way that she behaves, treating death as inevitable, okay, and kind of, looking upon nature as an adversary, but also having a very, very, let's say, matter of fact relationship with it, the dignity of her emotions. All of this, the Irish were able to identify as, their own stories, as their own experiences, as the way that, they have dealt with their history of oppression at the hands of an island nation that had colonized them. Understand? And that is why, that attitude towards faith that Moria has was also extremely appealing. Okay, so that is why, and her attitude to faith, as I told you, is extremely different and very interesting, because she asks for the salvation of her dead children. She also asks for the salvation and mercy upon all those who are living and left in the world. Okay, and look at the nature of her grief or her mourning. Okay, while she says that everybody is gone, okay, and I am just here, I have no longer to cry. Okay, so that spirit, look at that spirit that she's putting forward. I don't have to cry anymore. I don't have to pray and pray till my prayers become incoherent mumblings. Okay, I don't have to sit up and watch. I don't have to really care. Okay, though my upkeep will be difficult, my sustenance will be difficult, but I can now rest. Okay, it also points to that essential perception of the mother as a human being who hardly gets any rest, because she's constantly concerned about her family. So this also squarely places the woman as the central figure in a family. And Ireland is one of those places that, on account of its resolute Catholicism, places a great deal of emphasis upon the idea of family. Okay, they have that kind of a very strong sense of the family. Understand? So that is about Moria. And now I'll just talk about the idea of gender that Asha had raised here. See, like I told you, we have to understand that this play was written in 1904. At which point of time the women's liberation movement had not really caught on as much as it did. And also, the Abbey Theatre, ironically, was run and managed and to a great extent sustained by Lady Gregory. Okay, Lady Augusta Gregory, who was one of the founding members of the Abbey Theatre and was also one of the very important figures of the Celtic revival or the Irish literary renaissance. Okay, so it is not like the Irish were gender biased. It was just that their culture, as well as the cultural let's say milieu, milieu, okay, milieu of the place that we are talking about favored the men and the role that they played as breadwinners over that of the women. Okay, because in a place which is basically seafaring, where much of the sustenance comes from the sea, people going out into the sea and kind of earning a living from the sea, crossing the sea to go to the market to sell their produce or animals or so on, there was hardly much of traveling that women were doing. Understand? So that way, from the point of view of economic sustenance, the men were very important. Okay, at least for Moria or people like Moria. Okay, this does not mean that she did not love her daughters, but in the let's say in the cultural, social, and economic aspects, her sons were important to her. And also, if you notice, the sons were the ones who died, not the daughters. So we will never be able to gauge the extent of her grief, in terms of if she had lost Nora or Kathleen. So that is why. So we cannot be militant about the nature of that play. I would say that Singh hadn't really done much of justice to gender equality in the play. It is just that the circumstances, the time that he wrote in, and the time and the place that he was writing about would not really allow for it. Okay, so that way you can examine this play and its sociological importance or significance, in that the men were valued on account of their economic contributions. Okay, and that is why possibly their their loss was felt more seriously. Does that take care of that particular aspect? All of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
and like I mentioned, see in Zorba the Greek, also the same happens, where the landscape is so harsh, and there is so much of work to be done out of the land, that women are somehow relegated by patriarchy. Now, while there is something of it's rather repellent to see that happen, where men have banquets and women are merely serving them in a very timid fashion and so on. It also is a very, very, very important cultural insight into this entire thing. See, like in that, this for the communicative students, where we were learning about literature and the environment, and I told you it leads to feelings of empathy, compassion, as well as it kind of gives us a glimpse into, how these cultures work and so on. It makes us sensitive. These kind of books, remember the re-examining of the texts from the 60s and 70s and so on. So these let's say works also, when you re-examine them from the gender perspective, we are able to relate to them in today's circumstances, and we can critique them. That is how it happens. Okay, so I think we spoke about the character of Moria, didn't we? Right. So if you look into it, the men whom we say that Moria was mourning so deeply, they don't really leave an impact upon you. Look at Bartley. Okay, he says it is a good day to go to the fair. Apparently, they will get a good price, and kind of his economy or his family's finances over his own safety, because that's how the place is. Okay, and he being a young man cannot be found sitting at home, because that will undermine his place in that particular society. Okay, so it is also, a comment upon the kind of societies that these people come from, which emphasize, the economy, which emphasize sustenance, which emphasize the importance of resources over your own safety. And look at Nora and Kathleen. Though their role is rather, secondary to this entire narrative, the way that they conduct themselves, the way that they carry themselves, symbolizes a great deal of hidden strength. Okay, it shows that they are no different from Moria. Okay, they lost their last brother, their only remaining brother they lost, and they just found out that their other brother had died. And yet, what do? They talk about getting the coffin ready. Okay, and they say that, oh, my our mother might have forgotten the nails, because she is now too affected by grief. Okay, they were their brothers too. Okay, so it's, I think that the women in this play are very strong figures, because they are very, very pragmatic about their loss. At the same time, they are acutely aware of the fact that death does not symbolize an end for their own lives. Okay, that no matter who dies, their lives have to go on. And it is that where they view life as one of those systems that have to keep moving forward without a stop. The relentless movement of life is what is symbolized by these female characters. Okay, so that way Nora and Kathleen are also extremely powerful, because they do not get bowed down by their grief. And in the beginning of the play, look at that, Nora is handed over those clothes by the young priest. Normally, what do? They tell the men all the sad news of the family. But in this case, that was not there. So look at it, that aspect also. If we are talking about gender bias, the young priest gives it to Nora, and Kathleen, what does she do? She kneads the bread, puts it in the oven, sits down at the spinning wheel, and starts. So life is, a constant set of motion or movement for these people, which cannot be stopped because someone died. Because there's always something else that needs to be done. Okay. Okay. Anything?
Ma'am, you'd asked us to talk about the spinning wheel.
Yes. Okay, so I would like to talk about symbolism. So if I don't come there, I'll just note it down. So some of the important, themes here is that of grief. We have already discussed that in detail. We talked about, faith. Again, we have said that. Then fate and its inevitability. That can be linked with the philosophy of life. That's one of the themes in the play. Okay, the philosophy of life. Like I told you, the what happens in this case is that the landscape is symbolic of the mindscape. Understand? And just as the landscape is relentless, just as the sea is relentless, it kind of lashes against the rocks. Okay, it is a constant. It is unchanging, in the sense that its nature is unchanging. Okay, and it deals with, the sea doesn't imagine, oh, poor Moria, her 5 sons and one husband and her one father-in-law, they died, so in that case we'll just leave Bartley. It doesn't do that. Okay, so the sea just yes, so the sea just goes on and on like that. So, we can see that in the behavior of or let's say in the portrayal of the sea as a relentless entity, okay, we can see that, that is possibly the philosophy of life as is presented in Riders to the Sea. Okay, so the relentlessness of the ocean is mirrored in the lives of the people who are in the lives of the protagonists of Riders to the Sea. Okay, and here Nitya says that she considers Nora and Kathleen to be stronger than Moria because they were worried about Michael, the other brother, but they did not cry, unlike Moria. Okay, so that is it. Moria cried when she saw Michael's clothes, not Bartley's clothes. Michael's clothes. Okay, that correction is there. Good point. Thank you for thinking. That is wonderful. Okay. So these are the central themes. Now we'll come to symbolism. Symbolism. So the play is, as I told you, very rich in symbols because it wished to put across the mystical, let's say, ideas that pervaded Irish literature at that point of time. Okay, so that is why it emphasized that though life seems to be mundane, okay, that life is not just about living dying, working hard, living dying. It's not that there is of course an external force that acts upon our lives. I don't know how many of you have heard about the three sisters, the fates.
Yes.
Oh, I haven't
When we
typed
done
it.
Shakespeare, in
Um,
something.
what's that in Macbeth?
I am not quite sure, ma'am. I think I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so these are the three fates. Okay. Please look in the comment box. Okay, I've been typing. Do you know that I've been typing things in the comment box?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
We do get
So
the
yeah,
notifications. Okay, ma'am.
cool. Okay, so there are the three fates. Okay, they are supposed to be the sister. They're supposed to be sisters. That is Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. Okay, and Clotho is the one. Okay, Yeah. So, Clotho is the one who spins the thread of life. Okay. Now, Lachesis measures. Now, when you say the thread of life, it is how much of life you are to be given. This is, right now somebody is spinning my thread of life. Then Lachesis will measure it out. She'll be like, okay, this many years, those many years, those many years. And it is Atropos who cuts it. When it is cut and when that point is reached, the person dies. Okay, so if you look at it in that sense of the term, Kathleen was sitting at the spinning wheel and spinning, a spinning thread. Okay, and then our Nora looks at Michael's clothes. Understand? And Moria does not give Bartley the bread of life. Understand? So in terms of, let's say, symbolism, these three women, okay, now, in Greek, the three fates, that is Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, were called the Moirai. Okay, which is again, it sounds like Moria is a derivative of the Moirai. Understand? Yeah. So you see that possibly that is a very powerful significance of these three women in this play. They could represent the three fates. Okay, Clotho who measures, who spins, Lachesis who measures, Atropos who cuts. That you could find those kind of parallels in Kathleen, Nora, and finally Moria at the end. Like Atropos who cuts, that signifies the end of the human life. When Moria does not give her son that bread, she is also not, she's denying him that life. She fails to give him that life, which is sustenance. See, in these places, bread is sustenance. And in the Christian sense of the term also, bread means life. Okay, it means rejuvenation, it means revival, it means a promise. When you take communion, it is a promise that you're making. Understand? So she does not give it to her son because she is so struck by who she sees walking behind her son. Okay, so that way, there is this kind of a symbolism in the play. The three women in the play symbolize the three fates. Then you have supernatural elements, in terms of the Michael, the soul of Michael that follows, Bartley as he is making that final journey. And, when Moria sees that, she understands that Bartley's time has also come. Understand? So that kind of a symbolism is there. And also the ship, okay, the ship that is waiting to take Bartley to Connemara. It could also mean the ship that ferries people from the land of the living to the land of the dead. Understand? So, the ship is symbolic, the bread is symbolic, these women are symbolic, okay, and, the sea itself is symbolic of that eternity that stretches out before us, where, it has happened so many times. It has happened, through so many centuries that nature does not find anything new. Okay, in this whole cycle of birth and death, it is just us humans, because we are mortal, we find something unusual about birth and death. Okay, otherwise it's all the same for nature, because how many births, how many deaths, how many in between conditions has it experienced? That is why. So that way this plays also, the symbolic value of the play comes from all of these. Is there anything else that you could think of that you would like me to discuss? Let me see if I have written anything.
Ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, tell me.
No, ma'am, no. Carry on. I'll say it later.
No, you tell me.
No, I just saw this question and question paper. Should we discuss that later while discussing question papers, or should I say it now?
Yeah, just tell me.
The language of Riders to the Sea.
Yes. That I thought we will come to after some time. So just keep that there. Okay, because right now I was going to talk about the idea of tragedy. See,
Okay, ma'am.
Is this play a tragedy? Think about the first definition that we learned from Aristotle and then tell me.
It is because she ultimately
Yes, ma'am.
accepts the finality, that all of her sons are dead and that she needn't worry anymore.
See, that is exactly why people don't consider this play to be a tragedy. Okay, because somehow
Does this arise pity and emotion in the readers?
that is the point. See, does this cause catharsis? Does this cause catharsis is one of the main questions that a lot of critics have asked. Okay, not because these people are simple fisher folk. It's not because of that. It is because somehow human life is considered to be a matter of fact entity. Okay, it is just considered to be as significant as the life of a horse or the life of a pig or anything. Okay, that kind of tragic value, that kind of sense of irreparable, irreplaceable loss is not really brought forward here. Possibly because Synge wanted that kind of let's say the endurance of the human spirit to come forward. Okay, the ability of the human spirit to overcome all grief, to come forward and shine, is probably why the what do you call, the irreplaceability of the loss does not really come forward. Understand that crushing sorrow does not come forward. What instead we see is a mother who has lost 6 sons, a husband and a father-in-law, sitting down and stoically telling herself that she can now rest, and she asks for pity and mercy on all the souls around her, those that have gone and those that are staying behind. Understand? And that can only fill you with a sense of peace rather than pity and fear. Understand? And the way that she recounts them, she says no matter what, some were found, some were not found. Sean and Stephen were found. Okay, Patch was also found. The father and the father-in-law and the other son were not found. Michael has not been found. He has been buried somewhere else. Now these, this boy Bartley can be buried here. A deep grave. What more can a human being want? So see, you live and then you are buried. That's the most you can ask for, is what she says. So this is not in an alien sense. It is not a tragedy in the conventional Aristotelian sense, because the focus of the play is not on the loss, it is on endurance. Okay, it is on survival. Okay. Yeah. Now we were going to talk about the language of the play. Okay. Now, if you notice, yes, sure. This is structure and language of the play. That is exactly what we were going to talk about. I think that's the question that Afra was also raising, wasn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that is what we will come to next, because I thought that once all of this is conveyed, then this question, it becomes easier to answer. So thank you, Niranjana. This play has a rather unusual linguistic structure. Okay, where is that? Sorry. Yeah, remember those lines that I read out to you people? That also points at that. See. You do right to leave that rope. It will be wanting in this place. I'm telling you, if Michael is washed up tomorrow morning or the next morning or any morning in the week, for it's a deep grave, we'll make him by the grace of God. See, this is another example of what I was telling you about Moria. See, she says, don't take that rope for the horses, because we will need it for Michael when he is washed up on the shore. He has drowned. She knows he has drowned. She knows he is dead. She can feel it. Okay, so she says, we will need this rope because we have to dig a deep grave and we have to lower him into the grave. So this is a mother who is constantly preparing for the deaths of her children, her sons. Okay, so now once that Bartley is also dead, now there is nothing more that she has to prepare for or wait for or anything of that sort. Anyway, so the language here, is of main concern because, like I told you, there was this Gaelic revival. Now, Gaelic is the language of the people of Ireland, okay, and Wales and so on. And these people, they kind of wanted to bring the ethos of their language back. Okay, they wanted to stress on their ethnic identity. And for that, this language, the Gaelic was very important because that best conveyed the rhythms of their thought. Now, they wanted the same to be reflected in the place that they wrote in English also, because it was a way of, in their way of reclaiming their cultural past. So while this style of writing might seem unfamiliar for us, it is something very familiar. It is something very easily identifiable for the people of Ireland watching this play. Okay, because this is how they speak. And while it is defamiliarizing aspect for us, it is something very, very familiar for them. Okay, so what it does is that the language of the play serves to emphasize the Irishness of the play. Okay, it serves to emphasize the Irishness of the play, thereby making the audience aware of the fact that they are watching an Irish play. This is a way of cultural reclamation. Okay, so this language and the structure of the sentences, all of this is a way of reclaiming their past. How many marks did this question come for?
Ma'am, it's an essay question. So 15 marks.
Okay, so the beginning you'll have to talk about the Irish Literary Revival, okay, and then you have to talk about the play in very brief terms. Then you have to talk about this particular cultural reclamation and so on. And then I would suggest that you talk about this particular aspect that I had mentioned earlier. The idea of the landscape being symbolic of the mindscape. Okay, similarly, the language is also symbolic of the landscape. Understand? That is, say, look at this language. It is hard. It is difficult. It is not very, how do I say it? It is not very decorative. Okay, it is not bombastic. It is not elaborate. It is stark and sparse. Okay, it is devoid of embellishments. Understand? It is devoid of embellishments, meaning that this language reflects the reality of the people who are characters in this play. Okay, so the language reflects the reality of the characters in the play. Understand? So their starkness, the starkness of their life, the austerity of their thoughts, the simplicity of their life processes, all of this is reflected in this language. Okay, look at Moria. Even in the throes of grief, she does not say, "Oh Lord, forgive something." She doesn't use that kind of language at all. Look at the kind of language that she's using. It is plain, simple, stark. Understand? Like her life. Okay, like their thoughts. Their thoughts are not about high philosophy or things that people don't understand. No, their thoughts are about sustenance. Their thoughts are about survival, and this language reflects those very thought processes. Okay, so the language is reflective of the landscape and the mindscape, their experiences. Understand? I think that will make a very clear 15-mark essay, don't you think? Is there anything that you would like me to add or has come to your mind or anything like that?
Yes, ma'am. Actually,
Yeah.
when it comes to essay questions, should we write the story in a nutshell in the introduction part or something?
No, not really. That is why I said, you should do it this way. Like, for example, you can just have a very general opening, like written in 19 or performed for the first time in 1904 as the inaugural venture of the Abbey Theatre. Okay, Riders to the Sea by J M Synge is is a landmark play in terms of the Irish literary revival, which is also known as the Celtic Twilight. Okay, and the play in all of its aspects reflects the aspirations of the Irishmen of those time. When I say Irishmen, I mean people of Ireland. So make it people of Ireland, okay, of those times, and it reflected their aspirations, their ambitions, as well as their intense need for reviving and reclaiming their cultural past. Okay, you say that your first introductory paragraph is complete. Then you say that the play, conveys these ethos through its central protagonist Moria, as well as the other characters, so and so, so and so, and so and so. The action unfolds with the with I suppose, yeah, the death of Michael and the impending death of Bartley. Okay. And then, of course, you talk about how this play kind of, the themes that are centered around this. Okay, so you say that it is not just death that is predominant in this play, it is also the themes of survival, sustenance that also shine through the words of the protagonist. This is how language becomes very central to the thematic, let's say, underpinnings of the play, in terms of the fact that the language of the play reflects the landscape as well as the mindscape, okay, of the characters. And then you talk about what kind of landscape there is, what is the mindscape of the people. Then you talk about how the Irish literary revival, and this play in particular, wanted to reclaim the ethos of Ireland. It wanted to kind of arouse pride in its ethnic origins, the rhythms of the language. And while all of these might be unfamiliar or might have a defamiliarizing effect on non-Irish readers, for the Irish readers as well as audience, this play will be something that is easily identifiable. Okay, and then you talk about how the language is very stark and sparse, it is devoid of embellishments. You can probably bring in a slight quote from Aristotle, where he says, in language embellished with different kinds of artistic ornaments found in different parts of the play, kind of a thing. But that is missing here, because then it would not be true to character, it would not do justice to the play. Understand? So you say all of those things in very logical, very simple fashion, and then you can bring the essay to a conclusion by saying that the starkness that is obvious all through the play, okay, and the relentlessness of lives, as well as the ocean that you can see in the play, is also reflected in the language, because the language is one of sustenance. It demands survival. It is not one that has the leisure of pondering upon philosophy. Understand? And that way the language of the play does full justice, as well as it becomes a character in the play, rather than mere support to the characters. So the language in the play is not just words, it is also a character in the play.
Okay,
Understand?
ma'am. Thank you.
Anything else? Can't see can't we see another aspect, that the Irish fishermen's death religious sacrifice, Kerala fishermen who saved people? Yes. No. In this case, the two things are two different things, because all of the men in Riders to the Sea died for their own died in the course of fending for themselves, rather than as an act of sacrifice. So that way we cannot see them as similar. But is there anything else that we should be talking about? I would like to have talked about the Irish literary revival. Do you want me to talk about it or send you notes?
Notes.
Don't you have notes on the Irish literary revival? Eli,
No, ma'am.
you don't have this to study?
It's in the on the we don't have it in a very detailed manner or anything. We have essay questions and answers to it at the end of the book.
Which book?
Why does the seat? So white book. Ma'am.
Oh, like that kind of a book. Okay. I'm
Ma'am,
going to
with
stop.
text with guide.
Yeah, kind of that kind of thing. Text.
And ma'am,